Hey, today we're going to be going over the long requested video, which is OSRB Part 2 with MRDOG. Um,
Hello.
so he'll go over a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today, and if we need to make another video, we will.
Right.
And any questions that you have, his Discord will be in the description, and he loves answering
Yes.
questions. So,
Yes, I love answering questions.
alright,
Alright,
so,
so yeah. Today we're just going to be talking about mostly how order of entities works, like what it is, and that'll be encompassing a bit more of like swing topic that I touched upon in the last video. And yeah, as Onestack said, anything that we don't cover and people point out, then we'll try cover in another video.
yeah, and also I feel like for those that are a little bit more advanced in OSRB, maybe you could go over some of the hammer ratios for.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I'll talk about like how to get them and what you need to look for.
Okay, all right. Go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah, you can start.
All right, fair enough. So when you're OSRBing, there's the most important thing, other than like how much TNT you use and stuff, is how you understand how it's working. So, for example, we touched on swing last time. I'm going to go a bit more into depth about how that works. So, when you're thinking about swing, you want to think about it in terms of like it's an order of steps. So, for example, if you have like 10 pieces of TNT, there's going to be 10 things happening inside one game tick, all in an order, but they're not all happening like simultaneously at the exact same time. They're all happening one after the other, and each previous like thing that happens. So, say TNT 1 blows up, that's going to affect TNT 2 to TNT 10, and
Mm.
then you'll see that, and that's pretty much what swing is. It's just the effect of previous events that happen. So
So
say,
pretty much like
go on.
when you're even though things are on the same tick,
Yeah,
they don't simultaneously go off. So
yeah,
um,
yeah. It all happens at different points.
mm,
So for example, say I've got like 10 TNT just in a block, like midair here. What the first piece of TNT is going to do, so in the game tick, the first TNT will be calculated first. So it will drop down ever so slightly because that's what it happens. So the movement is calculated and then it explodes once it's at the end of its like fuse. So a fuse for TNT is 80 game ticks, 4 seconds. Um, Once it gets to the end of that, it will explode and that will give velocity to the rest of them.
mm,
And then that will be factored in the like in all through the next steps. So TNT 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this will drop down 0.04 ish blocks and then explode on, if say it was exploding after a single game tick or
mm.
in the same game tick that it gets there. It drops down, explodes, and that affects the rest of them. And then the second piece of TNT is then calculated. This will go up about just under a single block because they're so close.
Mm.
You nearly get like you pretty much get the maximum velocity, not quite, but it's roughly there. And then that TNT will then explode, and that'll affect the third piece, which will then its velocities will be like pretty much cancelled out.
So this is all
Um,
happening in the same block. It's just
all in the same. No, it
or not
happens
block, but
between
area.
3 blocks.
Yeah. Okay.
In the same game tick, all of this is happening.
Mm.
So TNT 1 drops down, explodes. TNT 2 goes up, explodes, cancels out the velocity of the remaining ones, and then
So it's kind of like
the
going back and forth.
because it doesn't so much cancel it out as it just reduces it to a lot less than it would have been. It still goes slightly up, so um, the third TNT is going to be slightly above the center, and then once it explodes, it's going to do what the first TNT did, but downwards to the rest of them. And then
Mm.
the cycle is just going to keep continuing. So it goes slightly down, all the way up, all the way down, and then slightly down and all the way up,
Yeah. So it's like
etc.
just ping ponging up and down pretty much, right?
And this is important to know because of the way that you want OSRBs to work, which is if you're shooting lots of sand into like, or if you're shooting lots of sand with your hammer, you don't want it to stack before it like gets shut up or is restacked, because if it stacks before, then it's just going to get destroyed.
So here show a diagram of that. So
Right. Yes, a
Wait, can you
diagram.
give me build terms?
So say your barrel block is, let's say the barrel block's there. You're shooting, no, not there. So you've shot in along this guider, and it hits this. It drops down. Then this sand stacks, but you don't want your OSRB sand to also stack here. I
Mm-hmm.
realize that's orange wool. They look the same in this texture
Yeah,
pack.
yeah.
So your red sand will stack there if it's not like correctly ordered, for
Mm-hmm.
example. So if all of it were to stack, then all of the red sand will be calculated before the hammer was,
Yeah.
which is not what we want.
Mm-hmm.
Alternatively, it could be an issue regarding how much TNT you have, because as I showed with the 10 TNT or whatever, you have a different order or a different like position for each. If the final position is like down the bottom, so say there's the middle TNT here, if the final position is down there, then everything's going to get shot up,
Mm-hmm.
and if the
So
final position is there, everything is going to get shot down.
yeah, so that's a good example of this is like if you're trying to connect it to something that's not OSRB related. If you're just talking about hammer in general, um, like it won't always work depending on if you add one more. Let's just say sometimes you'll have 254 and it won't work, but then you add one more to 255 and it'll work, right?
Well,
So.
that's not so much to do with the whole it going up and down. That's to do with how far it's going down in a
Mhm.
single tick.
Yeah.
Um, so we could also talk about how sand stacks and stuff. That's pretty cool. But anyway, so what this could be applied to is say like old like point two like one stackers or whatever. You know how they or like let's take Dragon Airbenders whatever. His had like what 8 or 9 pieces of hammer TNT that would like force the sand down.
Mhm.
That's kind of exactly what that was utilizing. So the last TNT being in this position, but also it giving enough velocity downwards for this to stack like a block or two down
Yeah.
below the barrel. So that's exactly what that was. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. As you can tell, I don't
I'm
know
pretty
much
sure.
about OSRBs. So yeah,
Fair
all the
enough. Yeah.
questions, ask him. I've never made one.
Maybe you should.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so you want a combination of the right order and the right amount of TNT for an OSRB to work. So you want the right amount of TNT so the sand doesn't get destroyed because it stacks before or it gets shot down by the TNT. But you also want the right order so it doesn't go down before the TNT explodes. You want the TNT explode and then that to go up because it's forced up by the last like
Yeah.
TNT. My sisters are like singing in the background. I don't know if you can tell.
Mhm.
um, but yeah, so that's pretty much how like it works in a sense that it's not quite like restacking yet, but it's getting shot up.
So this last piece of TNT in the hammer,
Is down
um,
there,
it's down there, and then it shoots the
or
overstack thing.
it's
Uh,
technically it's not down there. It's actually in the lower in the middle
mhm.
because it gets shot up about like less than half a block. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to restack because TNT can only do like block damage if it's like half out of water
Yeah.
or half in a block. Um,
So what's a good
yeah.
ratio then?
So like the easiest ratio to work with for like a normal 255 would be 300 hammer and then like 33 OSRB hammer,
Okay.
and then having like the correct ticks and stuff like amount of sand.
Yeah.
There are other ratios which you can like for lower amounts of stackers, which you can determine using uh, the whole like 3 positions of TD. Technically 4 positions, but they're all ever so slightly skewed each time in each cycle.
Mhm.
Um, just because of how numbers work and the fact that it's never going to be exactly that each time.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I guess the next thing to talk about would be then restacking. So uh, you need to. It's basically OOE stacking. So it's based off of the order that the sand is rendered and the OSRB hammer is rendered. So the sand always will have to render before the OSRB hammer.
Mhm.
So so that it
So
can move.
sand, yeah, so okay, so sand is rendered before OSRB hammer.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that it can fall down and then the OSRB hammer explode, as opposed to the OSRB hammer explode and then the sand get like shot up or stay in the same place
Yeah.
and then just like break and just fall.
So
Um,
so pretty much this sand right here needs to be pushed out before
yep,
your OSRB hammer is activated.
exactly.
And
Yeah. So,
yeah.
and the amount of TNT you need is a lot higher because it's always stacking and there's
Yeah.
like such a small difference, and also because of the whole like 3 block-ish rule
Yeah.
there. Because obviously, if it's like this, you're not going to get all of the TNT's like power
Yeah,
from
definitely.
all. You're not going to get all of them affecting like the 1 block in the middle there.
Yeah.
You're going to get about like a third, if not like slightly more, actually affecting it. So for like restacking like 8 or so sand, you're going to need around 30, if not more, like OSRB hammer to do
Yeah.
that,
So can I just
depending on the type of cannon.
yeah. Can I just model it and then tell me if I'm wrong about anything?
Yeah, sure.
So normally when you're stacking, you're gonna have a 2 game tick difference or 2 redstone tick difference between your sand and your hammer. So
Well, you have a 3 tick delay between your sand, like your hammer getting shot and it exploding.
wait.
But like
Oh
you have like a 2 tick
oh yeah,
delay between the power.
yeah, between your pows. So it's gonna have time to fall. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but for this, you're just stacking with order of entity, so they're in the same block, kind of, but sand is slightly lower.
Sand is the way always stacking it works is that the sand will drop before the
Yeah,
hammer
yeah,
explodes, so that it's further down, so it gets more velocity.
yeah. Okay.
Also, it gets given velocity. Because if the hammer falls first, then the sand is just going to get shot up or
Yeah,
shot
exactly.
slightly down or stay in the same place and just fall and
Yeah.
break. What you were talking about earlier, when like not having quite enough like normal hammer and it not stacking, is due to just like how much velocity the sand's actually given.
Mm.
Because if you go back to like the order of how things are calculated, if you give something enough velocity to stack, I'll do it here. So say you're stacking, um, your barrel is up here, whatever. You give this sand enough velocity to get to the floor in a single game tick. Say there's like 20 sand in there or whatever.
Mm.
The first piece of sand that gets calculated is going to go all the way down and instantly stack.
Yeah.
The second sand is then going to go all the way down, see that this sand is here, and stack on that.
Yeah.
And then the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, all the way to the top. And that all happens in the same game tick. That's why the sand stacks. And if you
So it
don't
looks
have enough
instant.
velocity, then the sand will probably like make it to like there.
Yeah.
All of the sand will make it to there in the first game tick, and then the rest will in the next game tick, because
I
it's not
see.
really, well, it's not gone all the way. In the
Yeah.
next game tick, it'll go down to here, and if this is like inside there slightly, then that'll only stack 1, and if it's like above, then it'll like stack 2, maybe 3.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
That's why that works. Or
Mhm.
doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that mostly covers pretty much all of it, I guess.
Mhm.
As for getting ratios yourself, as I said, it's just a question of like what position the TNT is in last, as well as how much hammer you have to like shoot the sand down,
Yeah.
like with it rendered before.
Yeah. So, I'm thinking in the next video we could actually go into the ticks like in relation to each other. So,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, when you need your
Do I hear OSRB Part 3?
part 3. So now that you know pretty much how OSRB works from these first 2 videos, he can go into depth about or you know the relationships of the different ticks that you need.
Yeah. It's probably going to be very confusing at first to a lot of people, but if you think about it logically, like as a step-by-step basis of what's happening in each game tick, then it's easier to understand. It's still hard to grasp, but it's easier to understand once you've got that concept.
Mm. All right, so is that it for this video?
Yes, I think so.
All right, well, thank you. And then next video, it won't be as long as a break. It won't be a couple. It was a long break since the last OSRB video.
Yeah.
So if you need to rewatch that, watch this, and then the part 3 will be out soon, and you should know how to make OSRBs. So again, if you have any questions, message MRD on Discord, and thank you.
I